Kia ora. Right, we have 8.2, plan change to enable built form review and realignment of public open space and council-owned development sites within the Wynyard precinct. Something has been a lot of work behind over time, but this is the sort of the starting of a process. So I think we'll have John, Councillor Baker has moved. I'm happy to second. John will lead off, and then we have Sarah, Panjama, and Fiona. I think that's who I've got listed. But
all right, kia ora koutou. Back again. So, Wynyard Precinct plan change, the team will speak to it in a little bit of detail. It's really we think it's a timely opportunity to look at the height and other controls that apply at Wynyard Quarter. We have the other main landowner at Wynyard, Violet Harbour Holdings. They have lodged and had a private plan change accepted for the first couple of blocks of Wynyard back from Fanshawe Street. So this would predominantly be looking at the area to the north of that. A lot has happened at Wynyard, as we all know, since the planning controls went through roughly 15 years ago. We think there may be some opportunity for some changes to the height controls to be a bit more enabling of development on the council land, and there is an issue to do with the height controls that apply around the Headland Park or Te Ara Tukutuku in the northern area that we think there's a better solution for height controls there. So it's really just to seek your endorsement to proceed with initiating a plan change. We will look to bring this back to committee, subject to discussions with the Chair and Deputy Chair, for a workshop before bringing the detail of the plan change back to committee for approval to notify. So hand over to Panjama at this point.
Kia ora. I just have a few slides for the presentation to show the context of the plan change. So looking at the Wynyard Precinct plan, there are sites that belong to councils that we would be reviewing the building form and building height and build form. So the site, starting from site 1, that is the existing car park. And on the left opposite site 1, that is the site that is subject to a fast-track resource consent application for apartments and mixed use, but that is the resource consent application. The plan change would not review the height and build form on this site. So as John mentioned, south of Pakenham Street West, that is VHHL, Viaduct Harbour Holdings private plan change area. So the site that we're going to review under this plan change is shown in pink. So site 1 is the car parking site. Site 2 is Sanford's site. Site number 3 is at the corner of Dodie Street and Pakenham Street West. And site 4 is for Wynyard Central. So the next slide, please.
all right, if we could, is it okay to keep mentioning the ABs, the lettered areas, just to show it's easier? So we're mostly talking about F, Mayor.
So this is, so the letter F is the sub-precinct plan of the Auckland Unitary Plan of the Wynyard Precinct. So it doesn't relate to, the size that we're talking about for the build form review. So this is the Wynyard point that we are going to review the build form for the Wynyard Precinct, of the Wynyard point. Showing on the left is an existing alignment of development sites. So that's the existing unitary plan. And showing on the right is the proposed alignment of development site and open space. And the proposed alignment was endorsed by the Planning Committee in 2017. It's just to give the context. So
Just to
that,
quickly jump in there, so the overall size of the open space is pretty much the same. It's just a slight reshaping of the open space to achieve a better outcome
the
in
existing
terms of development and open space and how they relate to each other.
is slightly increased. The existing open space is about 4.4 hectare, and after the alignment, the open space would be about 5 hectares. So that's the end of the slide for the presentation. Thank you.
Cool, thank you. And my understanding of the increase is largely due to the consolidation of the built form, so it was kind of separated and now it's kind of moved.
That's correct.
Cool. So, questions first to the Mayor.
Okay. This is another one of these ones that was all set up in 2017, which is 9 years ago, and it's beyond the statute of limitations, actually. And we seem to have had a lot of things that seem to have cropped up. I don't know what the drugs were everybody was on in 2017, but we just sold a very valuable site for way less than it was worth on the basis it was approved in 2017. And so, and things have changed. And you've got a picture up there which shows a new Headland Park smaller than what you've got here. And then you've got that other bit that you just went before. On the left-hand side, you showed bits and pieces. I think this is an approval to change, to apply to very, it's just applying to very what's the wordings in here? And also plan change being prepared. So in other words, it's not actually approving a plan change, it's just saying you can have a plan change. Well, I think we should do that, but I don't think something that was decided in 2017 shouldn't have that much influence on what we're doing now. It should be, it's now actually 2026 for those who haven't noticed, and there is quite a different view about a lot of things. And so also we've had several completely ineffective years from Iki Panuku dithering around with what they're going to do with harbour spaces. We've had a tragically bad sale of the North Wharf based on approval from 2017. And so I don't want to have 2017 wrecking the future any more than it already has done. And so as long as it's an approval to do a planning change, which you'll come back and ask us what you want from that, because we have a great big unfunded, grossly excessive public park down there, which will never be paid for or built. We've got another group that want to build a Noah's Ark down there for some reason or other. And we've got a city which is moving to intensification, better use of the value of the land, parks in amongst mixed uses, and a completely different way of thinking about things. And so, happy to do that you do a plan change, you propose to do a plan change, but not happy that it has anything to do with those pictures you showed up before there. Fresh thinking, please. That's what, because one of the things I stood on was better use of the harbour interface, and we want better use of the harbour interface than unfunded huge parks. We want parks are great, but they parks fit well in amongst other activities. And you don't just have a whole bunch of buildings in a park. That's what we got at Avondale Racecourse, and you can walk out to the middle of Avondale Racecourse and you can be on your own for hours. But we want to have some sort of a life-giving edge to the harbour. And we're going to get some external advice from other places that have done it well, even if I've got to pay for it, because we've had nothing back from Iki Panuku that's even worth a pot full of cold water, really. And so we've got to get something better than this. So I support the move to have to redo it, but times have changed. So can we have a discussion about what we're going to do before you launch into too much public space of it? I know that there are people here who loved the unfunded park, but that's kind of like Stockholm syndrome. We all love something when we haven't got anything, but that doesn't mean to say that it was the best solution for it. And so we've also got to think about what we're going to do with the other wharf spaces. So it's not just in isolation. We've also got, what are we going to do with the cloud? Because yesterday I was presented with something or other saying, first of all, that we're going to have to have a resource consent to do the cloud. Then we didn't need it. Then all of a sudden we asked that we don't need a resource consent for the cloud, but we need a building consent for the cloud. Oh, we need a building consent. So we're looking at the building consent, and they say, oh, we'll have to spend $3.5 million to give it another 5 years, which is $750,000 a year. It doesn't, in order to get $750,000 a year, that's net, you'd have to have something that's going to spend $1.5 million a year to make it worthwhile. And there's nothing like that down there. So we have to start thinking, what is the value then? What is the value of what we've got there? Do we have to do all this stuff? Do we have to cover the plastic again? It's not leaking. But there's a lot of bad thinking going along around the edge of the harbour. And from the AUDO people and other former refugees from Ikipanuku. So we need to have some fresh thinking about all of the edge of the harbour, everywhere. And this might be a place where you might even have another swimming pool, for all I know. There's a huge demand from those. I've got people from all over, from Manukau Harbour. I've got them out from your way, wanting one. I've got them from right up the head of the harbour, up there by near the Whenuapai Airport.
Yeah, I think
It's part of a big thing.
Yeah.
So that's just what I'm wanting. I support the idea you're going to go for a planning thing. Fresh thinking is what we need. Thank you.
Yeah, I did have some Mayor questions on this too. I think it is worth, we will have, working with the Mayor's Office, Central Wharves and the planning coming back for a relook. So if this will be part of that discussion, but I do think, Mayor, I do think that the team are working based on only the consultation only completed last year for the public, who are very supportive of the first green space in the city centre in 100 years. So we will need to think about how this committee and working with you looks at what is and isn't possible here. So can this concurrently happen? Can your work for a plan change happen concurrently at the same time if we're re-looking at what may or may not go down here, or is it chicken and egg now?
Yeah, Chair, they would absolutely have to work together. Thoughts about what might happen on the headland area with the planning provisions in the unitary plan, we have to bring those together. So, yeah, certainly my department together with AUDO will be working closely together on those two issues. Yep. And certainly hear your comments, Mayor, about the fresh thinking being brought to this.
Thank you. And that is, Mayor, in the work program that, led by your office, how we start the Central Wharves future, and I guess including Te Aro Tukutuku or the Wynyard Point designs.
Slight subsequent to that, though, when you said that there was a great deal of support, if you draw a plan with a whole lot of park and people walking around, everyone's going to love it. But we've got to say, we're going to pay for this somehow or other. We've got a rates cap coming. You can't put your rates up to pay for this. If we can, out in the Heather Ham, something like what they did in Puerto Madero, where partial land sales fund the park, so you get a properly finished park, and you get some buildings there that reflect the former uses somehow or other in the architecture, and provide additional people living there and playing there and eating there and doing all these things, and you get the whole thing. You don't just get plonked down a park and say, oh, your rates are going up to pay for this, because we never ask, how do we fund things? Okay?
Yeah. Part of it is that development is going to pay for a chunk of it. But go to Councillor, Deputy Mayor. Deputy Mayor.
Of starvation, but anyway. So, my understanding here, this has to go to the Minister for approval, right? So, my first question is, what do we know, if anything, about the Minister's attitude towards the plan change? In other words, what's the risk of this could all be for nothing?
Through the Chair, we've started the discussion with the officials, but they haven't been able to confirm what their advice would be on this one. What they have said is that if this is going to be more enabling of development, sort of raising height limits on some of the development sites, then that would align with where Minister Government's thinking is in terms of allowing certain plan changes to proceed and others to be stopped. So they're signalling that there's potentially alignment, but they couldn't confirm that before the meeting.
Okay, could you expand a bit on what's in the report around the risk of not doing this?
I suppose there are some opportunities for development on the council-owned land holdings that the height limits might be too restrictive. So there's a risk that we, as council, partner with a developer, have a transaction with the developer that's not getting the full potential of that site. So we think that there's that risk there of underutilising some of the land for development. That's probably the biggest risk. Lost opportunity cost. Yep.
I think my other next question is, what are the risks in terms of the existing residents down at Wynyard? I know we're starting a plan change, and I do support that, by the way. But I'm just saying, what is the steps that we start talking about to existing people down there? Because I think there was a story about in the media about them being really worried about the precinct and Orams Marines plans. That they were very high, etc., and the impact on the existing people. So, how are we going to mitigate that? How are we going to manage that? Going forward, or are you saying this is exactly what we should be doing and just box on?
We haven't thought through the detail of any engagement, consultation with stakeholders, landowners, but there would certainly have to be some form of engagement before we put the plan change out for submissions. So we would look to engage with resident groups as part of developing the plan. Once the committee has given us a bit of a steer as to what the plan change should look like, we could then engage and get that feedback from the residents in the area.
Finally, Chair, just to make it simple, so this is really just you're asking our support for the starting of a process.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Kia ora, Deputy Mayor, and although some of it will change, but before even people lived down here, the master plan did always propose open space and development and homes down here, which would help pay for the public space. Member Blair.
Through the chair. Thank you. I do have it on good authority that Ngāti Whātua are not wedded to Te Ara Tukutuku for that area. But my question is, how will Council consider the recent direction provided by the courts for engagement with tangata whenua in this area?
Thanks, Chair. Naramu, Member Blair. It is a difficult space for Council. We are continuing to navigate the issue of engagement with iwi, hapu around waterfront in particular. I'll be honest, I don't have an answer to that specifically right now, but we take the point and we will be doing our best to engage in a way that is lawful and respectful. Lawfully, yeah.
Kia ora. Any other questions? Councillor Watson and then Councillor Lee.
Yeah, I'm just struggling a bit to get a sense of what's changing from that 2017 visual, which made much play about the green link, open space link down to Victoria Park. So does that remain from the headland that's on the left of through the centre of the buildings? Does that remain unaffected by this all the way through to the headland itself?
Through the chair and really to the Mayor's questions and points, and Deputy Mayor as well, we're looking to commence the process and review as many aspects as possible. So we're not necessarily saying that the plan change would reflect the image that you're seeing on screen there. That is a starting point, but as the Mayor pointed out, that's a 2017 decision direction. So the plan change itself would look at whether that or some other scenario is the best in terms of the arrangement of open space, development sites, and the overall heights that are enabled.
Okay, so we don't know what you're going to come back with then.
yeah, it's a starter, but we don't know at this stage
Okay,
exactly what we'll be
that
bringing
was
back.
quite a big, that was a big play was made of that and all the documentation was, so I guess what I'm asking is those main features remaining unchanged or are they up for grabs too, these kind of open space lineal link?
Through the chair, that's exactly what we'll be bringing back to the committee for a discussion. I think this would warrant at least one chair, if not a couple of workshops before we actually have a draft plan change.
Okay, as far as the height, so you've signalled you want to increase the height all through here. What's the current, what was the envisaged height in terms of stories? And what would be the scope of potential change?
The heights on Winton Point are, through the chair, 27 meters, and we're looking to review the heights to see how high or what is the building form that complements the park and the coastal edge.
Yeah. Okay, so sorry, what did you say, 27 metres?
27 meters flat, yes.
Yeah, how many stories does that equate to?
Yeah, 7.
Seven.
Seven.
Okay, seven stories as it is. And so that height change would go for the whole block then? There's nothing distinctive about the bit that adjoins the actual headland itself? There's nothing
No.
particularly protected about that? And I say that because that's a kind of westerly aspect, isn't it?
That's correct.
It's kind of looking to the west, so you get the you know the later evening sun around the year. So that 27 metres goes for all those blocks, and we'll be looking to increase them.
The idea is to have an interface with the park that is that manages the coastal, the park, and the built form aspects. So it might not all be 27. It might go down a little bit before it goes up. So we just need to work out the built form.
Yeah. Okay. And the notion of height, increase and consolidation, that comes to us via what potential developers are saying. Is that why? What essentially prompts this, other than the fact that there's been a passage of time just through the inertia of the council, really, through nothing else?
Through the chair, we'll be looking at urban design and landscape expertise feeding into an analysis of what if any, changes there should be to the height to bring that back to you. For the first two blocks, as you saw, Violet Harbour Holdings have put forward a private plan change. That has been accepted. They have agreed to put that on hold to see whether the council's work may influence their plan change. But they are seeking it for the first two blocks of Wynyard Point from Fanshawe Street heading north, fairly significant increases in height on some of their land holdings, but not all of them. And so with the passage of time, you've had resource consents granted that have been slightly over the baseline height limit. You've got Violet Harbour Holdings with its private plan change. You've got some thinking around changes to the alignment of the headland park. With all of that going on, we're just signalling that it's timely to do a stock take of heights as a whole. We think there may be some opportunities for height increases, but there may not. So it's just a little bit too soon for us to say specifically on which parts of the Wynyard Point, public and private land, we think there should be increases in height or reductions, but we think there's definitely a case for a full review given all that's happened over time.
And sorry, you said urban design, and obviously there'll be open space expertise brought into this as...
That's, yep, absolutely. Open space expertise, landscape expertise, urban design, planning, to frame up something to bring back to the committee.
Okay, and when is it envisaged that may or may not come back to us?
We're hopeful that we'd get to the point of having a plan change by middle of the year, ready for notification. So that would mean probably in the next 2 to 4 months, bringing something back to committee for workshop time.
Thank you. And just to clarify, the 27 metres is current height, right? So then it would be up or down from that. Councillor Lee.
Yes, staff would be aware that there has been concerns from residents in the quarter. The original concept for developing the Wynyard Quarter was for a special, different sort of area from some of the new developments we've seen, for instance, Key Park or whatever, and height and moderate height was an important consideration. At the time, there was the general view inside the council and in the community that the Wynyard Quarter shouldn't be a high-rise area, but it should keep its special, if you like, atmosphere and amenity, and therefore new buildings shouldn't be over height. And of course, the pressure has come on, as it would naturally would, from Viaduct Harbour Holdings, who own a section of that to the south, for more and more and more height. And so my concern here is a real lack of detail about the background. I've had no briefing. It's an important part of my ward, no briefing whatsoever. I've passed on concerns from residents like Michelle Bogue and never had a response back from the planning department. I don't know whether they contacted her separately, who knows. But anyway, I am concerned about the diagram, because the diagram there is quite misleading. When you look at the Headland Park area, it seems like development has marched significantly up the peninsula of reclamation from what we've long agreed on, and that what we've agreed on essentially seems to be way more proportionate here. If you look at that squares of white buildings there, it looks like that's not an accurate depiction. And so one hope that the planners are not thinking of a development proportion as opposed to open space as set out in that particular diagram, but rather in this diagram. So could that be, is that an optical illusion or a poorly constructed graphic?
So I guess it's a bit confusing. The image up there was the kind of approved vision back in 2017.
Well, no, this is the one here. It's quite a different proportion.
Yep.
So that's seems to be up here. The development seems to have marched right up here to. So it may be that's just an optical illusion or bad design, but I'll point that out.
Can we go back to the?
It's misleading.
Can we go back to the?
I hope.
Yep. Can we go back to the two items? And of course, this is there we go. So the left picture is the unitary plan alignment. You'll see the pink areas are development sites, and the hatched areas have I can't remember the wording, but it's not exactly a public space zoning, it's
Designation.
a designation. So quite different to what was approved in 2017, but of course the planning documents haven't been updated to cover that. So this is what this exercise is trying to do. The development now moves to the other side. So then you would have a better alignment with Vic Park and access to it from Wynyard Quarter, etc. But as the officers said, Councillor Lee, that the change or the direction for change would have additional open space, public open space. But that's just direction for the work going.
Thank you.
Right, are there any other questions? Cool, we'll move to debate. Thank you very much. Anyone would like to speak on this? Cool. Right, all those in favour? Any opposed? No. Thank you very much. And I think this one will take 2 minutes, if we can all